Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be with all of you here today, and just reminding me a little bit of when I was finishing graduate school about 30 years ago, and it brings back very many good memories. I was just actually engaging with a friend of mine who's also here in Malaysia and was in graduate school with me, and looking back, and when we looked a lot younger, sort of a little bit more like what you look like now rather than what I look like here. But it's really great to be with all of you here today, and thank you very much for this privilege and this honor. Mr. Kim Solomon, Secretary General of Humanitarian Affairs Asia, Ms. Janice Leong, Regional Director of Humanitarian Affairs Asia, all of the key sponsors that have been here, the organizers, all of the people who have made this event such a great success. I've been hearing a little bit about it, and I think really very, very impressive, all of the things that have been transpired, all of the topics that have been discussed, and all of the conclusions to which you have come. Most importantly, to the young leaders and change makers from Malaysia and across the world. I understand that there are 35 different countries that are represented here. That's really quite amazing, and I really want to thank all of you for being here today. It's a real honor for me to be here today at the 13th University Scholars Leadership Symposium. As you all know, this is just 4 days before International Youth Day, which we mark every year on the 12th of August. As I start, let me just start with the words of the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres in his message last year for International Youth Day 2024. As many of you may have already heard, he basically said that achieving the Sustainable Development Goals requires a seismic shift, one that can only happen if we empower the young people and work with them as equals. So not as separate ones, but basically all together as equals. And that is why we are here today. Because the change that all of us seek, and that what we've been hearing about from Janice and from others, is a world that is more peaceful, a world that is more sustainable, a just world. And it's not only about the future, but it's really about all of you and all of you right now. So I think what has been really, really impressive to hear and to read a little bit about your biographies and understand who you are and where you're coming from is that your leadership, your participation, your ideas, they're not something that are optional, right? I think that that's something that we've learned, that really your participation and your leadership, they're essential. They're foundational to change. Without that, we really cannot move forward. Unfortunately, we're at a time of global turbulence. The news that we read each day is disturbing. It really calls upon us and calls upon all of you as leaders to really start to make a difference. We see that the climate crisis is accelerating, placing entire communities at risks. We hear and read about conflicts and displacements that are really tearing lives apart, tearing families apart, separating children from their parents. We hear about inequality and justice, which are widening divides. And also, in this digital age, we see that misinformation is corroding the trust that we previously had in institutions. So unfortunately, what I really would prefer not to be is that this isn't the world that we had hoped to hand over to all of you. But unfortunately, this is the world that you've inherited. So while that is a little bit gloomy, and despite all of that, I really stand here full of hope. Because hope is right here, is among all of you, is in this room. It lives in your vision, it lives in your courage, and it lives in your action. You've come here from 35 different countries, representing different cultures, different disciplines, and different dreams, but united by a shared belief that the world can be better and that youth must lead the way. Last year, at the UN Summit of the Future, member states endorsed the Pact for the Future. This was a path-breaking agreement that includes an essential chapter that's dedicated on youth and future generations. Governments pledged in this pact to invest in young people, in your education, in your well-being, and your right to participate and to lead. Governments also committed to ensuring that youth are able to have their voices heard and to have seats at the table where decisions are made, and where decisions are made locally, where decisions are made regionally, and where decisions are made globally, so that all of you in this room today can help shape your world and the lives that each of you lead. But at the same time, we must be honest with ourselves. We are really far from where we need to be and where we want to be. If we look at the 169 Sustainable Development Goals, only 17% of those are currently on track. Nearly half of them are off course, and some of those have even regressed. If we look at some of them in particular, we look at SDG 1, no poverty, SDG 2, zero hunger, SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, SDG 12, sustainable consumption and production, Sustainable 13, climate action, and SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. Each of these that I've mentioned are ones that are particularly challenged and particularly difficult to see progress on. Nevertheless, we are seeing progress in selected areas, including here in Southeast Asia, in areas like climate action and marine protection. And I know during the course of the days here, you've heard about some of these examples and some of the efforts that are being made to address and make improvements in these particular areas. But we also know that unless we include all young people, especially those who are in vulnerable and marginalized communities, including those youth with disabilities, girls and young women, indigenous youth, refugees, and youth affected by migration and conflict, we will fall short of real progress. We will not get to where we want to be. Let me share a story with you, a story that comes here, right here from Malaysia. Earlier this year, I had the privilege of visiting the largest rooftop garden here in Southeast Asia. This is an enormous 30,000 square foot sanctuary that is built on all places on the top of a mall. It's called the Secret Garden. If you have a chance to visit it before you leave, I encourage you to do so. And I was there to develop a keynote at the Malaysian ASEAN Youth SDG Summit. There was a botanist that was there. I think he was probably about 80 years old, and he'd been working on this probably for about 25 years. And he made an explanation to the youth who were there, to about 200 youth leaders who were there, about how the over 500 plant species that were planted in this concrete area on top of this mall were able to survive. The botanist explained to us how a visitor to the garden came up to him and asked him how these plants, some tall, some small, some fragile, some strong, were managed to stand resilient on top of a concrete rooftop. And I think he had a very interesting answer, and an answer that stayed with me. And an answer that I think reflects on what all of us are doing here today. And he said that they were able to survive because their roots were intertwined, that their roots supported each other, and that none of these plants actually stood alone. And that's what youth leadership is. It's collective. It's rooted in solidarity. It's about lifting each other up across borders, across different identities, and across generations. Today's generation of young people is the largest in history, 1.2 billion strong, a number that was unimaginable probably when I was still finishing graduate school, as many of you are currently now. And we will see that number continue to increase. By 2030, we expect that that number will rise to nearly 1.3 billion. As a result, your leadership is not something to wait for. It's something to act on, and to act on now. And you're already doing it. You're building climate solutions, you're leading in tech and innovation, you're organizing social movements, you're delivering humanitarian support. Real change, as we've heard already in some of the speeches here this afternoon, don't only come from parliaments or from boardrooms. They begin in classrooms, they begin in communities, and they happen in online spaces. It happens through every act of compassion, every initiative of sustainability, and every stand for justice. And that's why the UN is here. We're here as your ally, we're here as your amplifier, and we're here as your platform. We commit to continuing to advocate for policies that recognize your rights. We will support spaces where you can lead and can be heard, spaces such as the one that you have here, where you're able to bring your ideas and share them with a broader community. And most importantly, we will continue to learn from you, because your ideas are shaping a more inclusive and hopeful world. So to all of you, from Malaysia to Mexico, from South Africa to Spain, let me tell you this: your activism matters, your passion matters, your ideas matter. You are not just the leaders of tomorrow, but rather you are the leaders of today. So I ask you this: please keep leading, please keep speaking out, please keep building a world that is just, green, inclusive, and peaceful. Because the future isn't waiting, and neither should you. Thank you very much.